welcome to another episode of On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA. I'm CJ Hutter, the treasurer of the PBA.
I'm Tanner Brandemore, the sergeant at arms of the PBA.
And today we have Jordan Ziegler joining us. Jordan is a attorney that works downstairs in the PBA office. He's been part of the benefit fund for a long time. The name of his firm is Pasternack, Tilker, Ziegler, Walsh, Stanton, and Romano, LLP. It's
that was
a mouthful.
Impressive. That was very impressive.
It's a good thing I wrote it down in the notes. So, Jordan, thanks for coming on with us today.
Thanks, CJ. Thanks, Tanner.
Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So you've been with the benefit fund for a long time. How'd you get involved with the PBA benefit fund?
Okay, so but the benefit fund is actually through Jeff Frailer,
okay,
the PBA president before Lou, before Noel, and after Tom Tohill. I worked with the PBA since, I guess, 1992, continuously through 1992 through today. But the benefit fund specifically, I started working with as one of the benefit fund attorneys since Jeff somewhere. I don't even know where it actually started, probably close to 20 years ago, 15,
wow.
20 years ago, as one of the lead attorneys. But I always worked as a PBA attorney within the benefit fund, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I don't know if it makes sense.
Why don't you explain that?
Yeah, so when I worked for a prior firm, I was an attorney who handled the disability pensions, the wills, the real estate, the matrimonials, any free phone calls, anything that the benefit fund provided legal services to PBA members. I was one of the associates, not a partner, just like a lawyer working in the law firm. Then when I left that firm and joined the firm I'm with now, which was, I guess, 28 years ago now,
okay.
I was working still with PBA members, but never formally as a benefit fund attorney, because I was out of the firm that represented you guys for the benefit fund. After a little while, Jeff asked me to come in and said that he'd like to have another firm handle the benefit fund legal services with the firm that they already have, so that the members could have choices.
Okay.
So now he said, all right, we'll have two firms, and we'll give them both names, and whichever member wants to go to whichever firm, they can go to. So that's how I became back into the benefit fund.
So the logic makes sense. Give the members choices, give them, options as far as how to move forward with whatever cases they're involved in, whether it be workers' comp or Social Security, right? So, how does some of that work? Like if somebody's getting hurt at work, and you get notified, what's the first step that your firm takes? How's that whole process work?
Okay. So that's a good question. Big question, giant question. So the firm, the main practice of the entire law firm is mostly injuries. So, and when you're a civil servant, and specifically Suffolk Police Department, Suffolk PBA member, you can have about 4 or 5 different benefits that go from one injury. So it all starts with you get hurt at work, and if you're working, it can be a workers' compensation claim. You also have something called 207C of the general municipal law. So when you guys are out of work on an injury, you're getting full salary.
Yes.
So that's because of this law 207C. If you are not a Suffolk police officer and you're injured, let's say one of my staff gets injured on the job, or, someone who drives a truck or anything non-police, they're not entitled to full salary. Their employer can give them full salary, but they're not entitled to it by legislation and law. So they would just get workers' comp, which is 2/3 of their gross weekly wages a week. 207C makes up the difference for you guys and girls. So it gives you full salary.
Is it for certain jobs? Is it for municipal jobs? Or how does that work?
Mostly, 207C is for law enforcement. So specifically law enforcement. So not every civil servant gets full salary. And then some do, some don't, depending on their collective bargaining agreement with the employer. So it gets a little complicated. So
are there other jobs, like a lot of times cops are compared to firemen, especially in the big cities that have the paid fire services. So they don't fall under 207C? Do they have something that kind of mirrors it?
They have 207A.
207A. Oh, very close. Does that mean they got it first?
I'm going to guess yes. I'm not a legislative expert, but probably. So if you get hurt at work, you're going to have a workers' comp case first, /207C. Then if you got injured because someone not your coworker or not your employer injured you, so The easiest example is you're in a police car driving on the road. Somebody else drives through a red light and crashes into you. So, I don't know, FedEx truck. So FedEx is not your coworker. If another police car strikes you, then what I'm about to tell you doesn't count because it's a coworker.
Okay.
But if it's not a coworker and you get injured by somebody else, that is a personal injury lawsuit potentially. So right away from the first injury or that injury, you can have a workers' comp case and sue somebody because they injured you. If you cannot work for more than 12 months in a row, you can file for Social Security disability. And if you can never return to work, you're permanently disabled to perform your job duties as a police officer, you can file for disability pension with the retirement system. 3/4, 50%, or actually there's a 33% also. Nobody likes to talk about it, but it exists. But it all starts with something you said, CJ, notice. Did you start with that?
Yep.
I think you asked, how do you tell somebody? So in order for any of these benefits to occur, you have to tell somebody you got hurt.
At work.
At work. You got to tell your employer. So whether it's a representative that represents the supervisor in between police officers and the police department, a supervisor, or forms that the police department gives you to fill out to notify them. There's a notification process that's required to get your benefits. So that's very important.
Is there a time frame that it needs to be reported?
Yeah, so there's a couple of time frames for different things, but I always like to start with the end, especially when it comes with police officers. So the end is, let's say this injury disables you permanently and you want to retire on a 3/4 disability pension. In order to get that, the retirement system requires you to give notice in 3 different ways. Let's see if I can get this in order. So one way, the first way is you tell the retirement system that you got hurt within 30 days of the injury. Most people don't do that because most people don't know that they're going to be retiring because of that injury. So that usually
it's not
is
the
always
last thing on their
obvious.
mind, especially if they're younger.
And I'm having a senior moment on, is it 30 days or 90 or within the year? But it's definitely within 30 days. That's the way I would characterize it. Don't wait more. But nobody does it.
Right.
The next is you file your disability pension within a year of your date of accident. Sometimes that happens by coincidence because it's a big enough injury and you know you're never going back. But most of the time you don't because you don't know still. Again, within a year, are you really permanently disabled or not?
Right. Are you still hoping to remedy the issue?
Right. Treatment, surgeries, and try to get back to work. So the catch-all is the retirement system says if you gave notice under the New York State retirement system laws, New York State workers' comp laws, if you give notice under those laws, which is 30 days in writing, that counts as notice for the retirement system for a disability pension years and years or decades into the future. So whittling backwards, the best advice is if you get hurt, you should file a report with the PD within 30 days because that covers you for workers' comp. Now, you guys, I think, have some other RMPs that say you got to give notice before that. Am I right?
Yeah. So we have a work rule that says you have to report it within 3 working days.
Right. So what I don't, really pay attention to as a workers' comp lawyer is if you don't give that notice within those 3 days, what happens? You guys may not even know. I don't know. What happens if someone gets hurt, they don't give notice within 3 days? The PD may say, well, you're not entitled to 207C. We don't think it's line of duty. It's not going to be 401. It'll be 301. Those are codes, whether it's line of duty or not.
Yeah, it's going to be non-line of duty versus line of duty.
But it's irrelevant. That's 3 days is irrelevant for my workers' comp world, Social Security world, disability pension world, and personal injury world. So my world overrules those 3 days.
Right. It's only a department policy. It's not law.
Correct.
You're dealing with law.
Correct. So that's why if someone comes to me a week or 2 after they got hurt, they didn't tell anybody, and they're nervous, well, I didn't do it within 3 days, I tell them it's okay. You'll still submit it under the workers' comp laws. You're still good.
That's why people would reach out to you instead of just doing it themselves. There's a lot of paperwork and a lot of different things that are beyond what we do.
Right. It's always worth reaching out to the expert in the field. Right.
Well, that's what I like. If there's a domestic or a car accident, you're not going to call me to respond.
Right.
I'm going to call you guys. This is the same thing. This is what we do every day. So we have, I think it's up to 13 offices. The closest is where we're sitting right now, downstairs on the Lower East Side of this Brentwood building. The next nearest by is 666 Old Country Road in Garden City. We use the Southampton office and all boroughs in the city of New York, then Orange County, Rockland County, Westchester County, Albany County.
So you guys cover a lot of different unions, and not even just all police unions. You guys cover other occupations as well. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Correct. So law enforcement is, we pretty much, I wear pretty much two hats on the unions that I represent. So law enforcement, whether it's police officers, detectives, court officers, correction officers, all law enforcement. And then going into like building trades. So carpenters, plumbers, electricians, utility workers, local 1-2 Con Edison union, Utility Workers Association, and teachers, UFT in the city. So very broad scope. So that's all the union. That's not all the unions, but that's the type of unions we represent: building trades, teachers, law enforcement. And then you don't have to be a union member to use us. Those are just people we have relationships with to help educate their membership. It's very easy, whereas private employers won't have a law firm like me come in and educate their members on their rights if they get hurt, for the most part. Unions are very active in protecting their workers' rights if they get hurt. So that's why we exist in that world.
Okay. And existing in that world is a lot different than the law enforcement world, too. I'm sure a lot of their typical injuries are a lot different than ours. Like, I know a lot of our guys, you always think of shootings, stabbings, fighting with a bad guy. But in the outside world, they're not doing that kind of thing. They're swinging a hammer. They're, steam fitters or welding pipes. So it's different kinds of injuries. But the rules are basically the same, I guess?
It's basically exactly the same.
Okay.
So they don't have 207C, so they won't get full salary unless it's part of their contract. Mm-hmm. But generally, it's workers' comp is 2/3 of your gross weekly average wage, whether you're a police officer or a carpenter. And you're entitled to have a personal injury lawsuit if somebody else injures you. So like in the building trades, a lot, we're dealing with the scaffold law and workers who fall from heights or things that fall from heights onto them. So that's typical in that industry, or, construction debris injuring them. Teachers, you find a lot of in the city. It's amazing how many teachers are injured in the classroom doing.
That's interesting. I wouldn't.
You think it's a safe space?
Yeah.
And a lot there's actually an unusually large amount of assaults on teachers, especially in the city.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, which I was surprised when I started representing them how many times they're assaulted.
Is that like an uptick from what it used to be? Do you think or is that like the generation of children they're teaching, or do you think it's just something that's always happened that maybe people don't realize?
It's a good. I don't know.
Now,
good question, but it's a good question.
When the teachers get assaulted, I'm assuming it's not always high school kids. Sometimes it might be junior high, middle school kids, young kids. Are teachers like pursuing criminal charges if they're seriously injured? Like, how's that all working? That's
a good question also. But they don't, for the most part. And it's a lot younger kids than when you were going down the grades. That's what I was shocked about. It's mostly not, I don't know, let me retract that word mostly. It's a lot of younger kids in the elementary schools where I see some crazy things.
Oh, that's wild. I would not have thought that.
But, generally I think as a policy, the UFT, or teachers don't want to really file charges against their students or their students' parents because, they try to do the right thing and just go through the motions and get their treatment and their injury treated and move on. And if they do the criminal stuff, that's not part of what I do. So I don't even know.
Okay. That's interesting. Now, do you think that's the teachers making those choices for themselves, or is that more of like a school district policy?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's interesting to me.
I mean, in theory, right? In theory, if you're injured by somebody, you can sue somebody if they injure you. But it gets very complicated with insurance policies, and if there's insurance, and if it's an intentional act or a negligent act. So there's a lot of gray area. So
I feel like the nurses do a lot of the same thing you talk about with the teachers. I mean, I worked in a sector where there was a hospital, and a lot of times the nurses would get attacked or harassed or assaulted by a patient in doing their job, which I think, to speak to your point, like what goes on here, do you file a criminal charge at that point? And a lot of times that was discussed, and a lot of times they deferred the option to make a criminal complaint at that point in time.
You know, it's funny. I don't know, because I try to stay in my lane. My lane is the injury side of it. So if they aren't filing criminal charges, I don't know, actually.
So the difference of whether they file a criminal charge or not doesn't have any bearing on what their workers' comp case might end up.
Correct.
It doesn't affect it at all either.
Yeah.
It doesn't make the case better if they do file a criminal charge compared to whether they don't.
No, not with them. But I'm going to swing back to you guys. So with police, it might. I'm going to be a lawyer today a lot and use mays and mights instead of musts and shoulds, and so it might help.
I expect nothing less than you.
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
So it might.
Lawyer it up.
So, there's a difference I mentioned earlier. There's a 3/4 pension and there's a 50% pension for retirement if you're permanently disabled. By the way, step one, whether you file criminal charges or not against somebody has nothing to do with workers' comp case or social security case. It probably actually would hurt your personal injury case, if I'm thinking on the fly right now, because personal injury cases are negligence claims. You're saying someone was negligent when they injured me. If they are intentionally injuring you, that has a ramification of taking that party out of their insurance coverage. And you can still sue them.
But that's personal.
It's personal. And now if you're suing them and they're not covered by insurance, you're suing them personally. And now you have to try to get, if you win, your money that you were awarded out of them personally. And if they don't have assets, you might not get anything. You may win, but you lose in the end. So if it's an intentional act, it's not great for a negligence case to claim that you were assaulted and file claims. But then there's assaults where, like the fine line, like let's say you're in a domestic and the husband goes to punch the wife, right? And you get in the way by accident, and the husband didn't intend to hit you, but he was swinging for the wife, and all of a sudden you're there and you get hit. So he intended to hit her, not you. So he was negligent in striking you, and in theory, you can have a lawsuit to, in that theory, that's a very, subtlety, but that's kind of things we look at if there's an injury on the job.
That's a lot different than him just trying to punch me.
Right. Just trying to come after you and say, I'm going to get you, cop, and then punches you. Now we know his intent, and that's hard to get. It's harder to get around that than if it's an accident or negligent. He didn't mean to hit you. Honestly, didn't mean to hit you. Didn't mean to strike you. That's just one little example. There's thousands of them, but I forgot where I was going. But with the disability pension.
Right.
So with the disability pension, there's a 50% tax-free disability pension and a 3/4 pension, meaning 50% of your salary or 75% of your salary for the rest of your life if you're disabled. So everybody wants 75, right? So
naturally.
What's the difference in how you get a disability pension? Is it 75 or is it 50? It's not on the severity of the injury. The difference between getting a 50 or 3/4. It's not the severity. The injury, for both, you have to be permanently disabled to be a police officer. Both. The difference is how you got hurt. So I always like to use like a shortcut reminder in my mind. If the way that you got injured, if the mechanism, the wording ends with ing, it's usually not a 3/4 pension. For example, if you write down, I was injured while pushing, pulling, lifting, bending, twisting, carrying, affecting arrest, those kind of ing words go towards 50% pension. And that's just because that's the way the retirement system administers it. That's their policy. And then the court system of New York State approves those kind of standards. So what gets you 3/4? I don't know. I've been doing it for 30 years. I'm still trying to figure it out. I guess that's why they say you're practicing lawyer. Still practicing, can't get it right yet. But
we're all always learning.
Trying to. So what is it? And it's a moving target. What is disability? What's the 3/4? So usually those words end with ED. So I was assaulted. I was stabbed. I crashed. Those kind of words usually will lean towards more 3/4. So if you are assaulted, it would probably aid you back to the original question 5 minutes ago. If you file criminal charges against the individual, now you're showing that it was an assault on you versus just your regular affecting arrest as the regular job duties of a police officer. So it might help.
It might help.
Right.
It's crazy how
answer.
It's crazy how a little bit of grammar makes such a big difference in how much money you get from your pension.
And speaking of grammar, do you have any tips, so to speak, for when you're filling out injured employee paperwork for the first time, as far as catchphrases to try to include or avoid, or something that can maybe help you down the line if things get a little gray?
Well, so we always tell the truth. The old days, so I've been doing this 30 years, maybe 20 years ago, we used to say, be as broad and general as possible. Now I switched to be as specific as possible. And if there's anything strange, unusual, weird that happened, that's what should be put in there. So it's hard to get around some things, right. It is what it is.
It is what it is, right.
Right, if you're,
but I would hate to see somebody just write something up the wrong way, use the wrong verb or noun that disqualifies them from something.
Exactly. I mean, I always start off with while on duty. Mm-hmm. So let's start with that. That's an easy one because in order to get...
You have to be working, right?
You got to be working and you have to be on duty. So, and performing your job duties. So I would assume you're going to be performing your duties. So I always just like to start with while performing duties. And then we go on with whatever happened. But it's difficult to say what to put down and what not to write. It's just the education is if you were, let's see, the best way, you just want something unusual to happen. So if you were lifting somebody off the ground, I'm just going to make this up on the fly and see if it works out.
Do you have any examples of something that you've dealt with in the past that's been like an interesting case that maybe you can go to? And
so many, and they're like all rushing through me at once.
Right.
To figure out which is a good example that
you start becoming inundated with information.
There's so many different examples for what is 3/4 and what's 50. But I'll give you. I'll be a lawyer again and try to avoid the answer a little bit. Is because there's a recent Court of Appeals case from last year that's I'm going to summarize it, not quote it, but it basically says, while on duty, a police officer is likely to encounter all types of hazards, and if they encounter any one of those types of hazards, it's not 3/4. Okay, so
that's very broad.
Right, very broad. So I think in that case, there was two situations. He was walking down outdoor stairs at night, and it was covered with wet leaves. Now, I would tell you maybe 15, 20 years ago, that's 3/4, wiping out on that. Now, it's not. At least in that case, it's not, because that was part of that case. And then there was another...
Well, why is that not 3/4 anymore when it used to be?
Because the Court of Appeals says you are likely to encounter anything hazardous on duty. And since that is not unusual, unlikely to occur, it's not 3/4. So the definition for 3/4 is unusual, not likely to occur.
What if it's like a dry night though, and now you have wet leaves? Does that change the situation?
Well, I always say, slipping on ice and snow used to always be 3/4. Now, for the most part, it's not. But I always ask the question, what if you slipped on ice in June where you walked out
Right, when you don't expect it.
You don't expect it. Then I think it could be.
Right. So to Tanner's point, if it was a dry couple of days, but for some reason there's wet leaves here, maybe somebody threw out a pot of water earlier in the night or whatever.
So
you don't expect it to be wet.
And I agree. So I would say, so now what to write in your report. Those are the strange details you want to add. It's a perfectly dry night, 90-degree weather for the last 2 days. I was walking down a staircase, didn't expect the first 5 steps were dry. And then all of a sudden in the middle step, it was wet leaves and I slipped and fell. Mm-hmm. So is it a guarantee? No. But it's better than I slipped on wet leaves. Because now you're leaving it to the retirement system to interpret what happened versus giving them all the nuances to it.
And like you pointed out earlier, you're still telling the truth. You're just explaining why this was unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, the other part of that case was he was walking around, I don't know if it was the same or a different officer, walking around the building they were called for an alarm, burglary, at night, flashlight, looking up at the windows and fell into a hole. And now I would say that is 3/4, but they didn't. And they being the Court of Appeals, saying it's not unusual that you would fall into a hole while inspecting a building at night. So it's
really,
the more I talk on disability pensions and what is and isn't, usually the look I'm getting now is what happens. You get more confused.
Yeah, because I wouldn't expect there to be a sudden drop or a hole in the ground when I'm walking around a building checking windows and doors.
I'm sure also if you said, hey, I was looking around first, I didn't see a hole or whatnot in the area, there was no construction being done or anything. If you explain that in your injured employee paperwork, would that make a difference, you think?
I think so. So, I can think of, I don't remember which department, Port Authority or MTA, someone was walking in the street. It was a flood. So I think they were like waist high in a flood. And while they were walking through this water, they fell through an open manhole cover. Right? So they're walking in waist deep water and straight down and then injure themselves. So that was 3/4.
Right. You can't expect that.
As it should be.
Right, as it should be, right? Most car accidents are still 3/4. I say most because, again, I'll be a lawyer. I know of 2 in my career, not my cases, but I know 2 that were not 3/4. But so I don't even, those are the exceptions to the rule. But mostly PD10s, MVAs are 3/4.
And usually it's because somebody's action was unexpected, and that's what caused
Correct.
the accident to begin with.
Correct.
I remember when I was learning to drive, I screwed up as a young driver at 16 with my learner's permit. And I darted through an intersection after I stopped at a stop sign as somebody else was coming down the road at a T intersection. And he almost crushed me. And he actually suddenly stopped, turned around, and followed me to the pizzeria I was going to. I was like, oh my God, I just screwed up. This guy's going to beat me up. And he saw I was a young kid. He saw I was learning how to drive. And the only words he said to me was, expect the unexpected. Right. Oh. So it kind of goes along with that same idea. When you get into an accident, it's because something unexpected occurred.
Correct. And it's the other part is, like, you just reminded me of a case I had with an EVOC, the car training instructor. So the passenger? No, the trainer. So two cases. So firearm instructor slipping on empty shell casings, not 3/4. But if you went there, maybe it's 3/4 for you because you're not there every day. The EVOC trainer, there was a crash, 50% for that trainer because that's what they do every single day. So then the retirement systems sometimes gets really nitty gritty on what your actual specific job duties are. So that you can get into hazy areas also with that.
Yeah. So speaking of like laws and the interpretation laws and how they kind of change over time, we just recently had a change with the HART bill a couple of years ago, and you had a big part in making those changes, right?
Yep.
Explain how that all played out.
So with the HART bill, I don't lobby personally. I don't go to Albany personally to lobby in front of the legislature. But what I did with the Heart Bill and some other disability pension bills and some workers' compensation bills is, as the legislative directors from law enforcement unions and organizations are trying to draft language for the Heart Bill, let's say specifically, they ran it past me. I could think of at least 4 different unions and umbrella organizations that sent me their drafts of what their wish list of what they wanted in this Heart Bill. And I helped tweak some of the language, that it gets subtle with legislation. Are you using a word and, A&D, ors, and, must, shoulds, may, can, all those words, shall versus may is a major deal when it comes to this stuff. So my role was to review the Heart Bill, tweak it in what I thought was the best way, and then give my opinion on, there was a wish list of what the Heart Bill could be. And I said, my opinion was that those are, if you get all of that, it's unbelievable. You're likely, though, to get this. So expect that. And if you get this, probably take it. So, for example, with the Heart Bill, the wish list was to have what we call a double presumption. So the Heart Bill says that, let me see if I'll try to make this easy, right, in English so that everybody listening can figure this out. So when you're filing for disability pension, let's say it's not your heart, it's your back or your arm, you have to prove to the retirement system that the injury is permanently disabling and it came from work. 2, no presumption at all. Right? So you have to prove that both it's related to work and you're disabled. There are some bills that have presumptions. So with the Heart Bill, there's a presumption that your heart disease, as being law enforcement, this is only for police. Well, some other law enforcement, let's just say Suffolk police. Your heart disease is a result of work, being a police officer for all these years, going through the stress, the adrenaline, up, down, and everything else that causes heart disease. So the legislature said, we're going to give you a presumption that your heart disease is from work, which means the retirement system's doctors have to disprove it. Whereas with your back, I got to prove it's related. Right. Retirement system's doctor has to disprove.
So basically, if it's like genetic or something like that, it's obviously not going to be covered under this bill.
So
if it's genetic, if it's something genetically that didn't happen from work, you can't presume that it occurred at work because it's genetically.
But they have to prove it.
Yeah,
they have to prove it. So they have to rebut the presumption. But unfortunately, when you look through the case laws going decades and decades back, even this Heart Bill that's new now is not new. What's new about it is you guys always had a Heart Bill. It was a 50% disability pension. So the new Heart Bill raised it from 50 to 3/4. But the processing of it is the same that it's been forever. NYPD had 3/4 Heart Bill for a long time. Some other agencies had it. So now not just Suffolk, but all law enforcement now just got moved up to 3/4. So the presumption is the heart disease is work-related, but there's not a presumption that you're disabled from your heart. So that's why I say a single presumption. Some bills have a double presumption. You're presumed disabled and you're presumed that it came from work. Those are good ones. So that's what we tried for this, but we didn't get it.
So you still have to prove that you're disabled to work.
You still have to prove that your heart disease permanently disables you from being a police officer. So, sort of back to what you were saying in 2 parts, where, like, is it genetics? Will they disprove that? The retirement system rebuts the presumption a lot. It's not a golden ticket, so they rebut it a lot. However, you can have a pre-existing asymptomatic heart condition, genetic, meaning you've had this heart disease, you've had this heart problem since you were born. You were born with it. But you went through the academy, you've been working as a police officer for 20 years, full duty, no medical treatment at all for this heart problem. But now you're getting short of breath, things are happening, you go to a cardiologist and the cardiologist says, oh, that heart problem you had as a kid, all this wear and tear of being a police officer for all these years is now making that heart condition, which was fine, you always had it genetically, but now it's aggravating it. and now it's making it symptomatic, and now you can't work as a police officer. So then we can still go for it. And then on the disabled part is if you're working full duty and you call me and you say, I want to go out on the heart bill today, but you're working full duty and have been for the last 20 years, overtime and everything, I'm going to, say, just use common sense. How are you disabled today? Because the retirement system is going to want to know you're disabled. But if you don't, if you're working full duty, it's not a great case. The only thing, before we get off the heart bill, I'll say, just to remind everybody, with time limits, remember we were talking about notice.
Yep,
so
correct.
The heart bill is an exception to the rules on when you can file for 3/4 pension or 50% pension. Those for a back, a knee, you can retire, come off payroll, and file within 2 years of the date you last worked on payroll. The heart bill, you have to file while you're still on payroll. So a lot of these heart bill cases are filed sometimes close to service pension, right? So if once you have your 20, 25 years, 30, whatever, and now you're feeling like you can't do it anymore because of your heart, and you have your years already, so you're going to go anyway, regardless of when you get the 3/4, you're going, but it's the heart that's causing you to stop prematurely. Everybody has to know they have to file for the heart bill before they put in their service paperwork. That's, if you remember anything from this, that's one of the most important.
That would be very detrimental if they don't do that, right?
You're out.
Okay.
So if you retire on May 1st, you file on May 2nd, you have no heart bill claim. You have to file on April 28th.
Right. Yeah. You have to file before you're actually
While you're
retired
still
for the heart bill specifically.
Correct. Specifically for the heart bill.
Right. Any other injury, you can still file after you retire. And sometimes that does happen because guys, an injury gets worse and worse over time. And where they used to be able to get around when they were freshly retired, all of a sudden now a year and a half later, they're having a hard time. Now they try to put in for the disability.
Correct. And it's strange because you have to prove you're permanently disabled to be a police officer, but you've been retired for a year. So the math doesn't compute in your mind. Like, how do I have to say that? I'm already gone. But that's what you have the right to.
Before we get off of this, though, I don't know what the success rate, how successful has the heart bill been in getting guys 3/4? And do you think that maybe getting your heart checked out either before becoming a cop or during the time period when you're a cop, somewhere in the beginning, could make a difference in you proving your case if this is something that could potentially happen down the line?
Interesting. The success rate is almost too soon to tell because it takes, on average these days with the retirement system, on average, a year and a half, 2 years to once we file a disability application to get the results back. So this heart bill is only a year old-ish. So I think right now it's sort of, at least in my world, our cases, I think I've seen 50-50. On the ones that should definitely get it, at least in my humble opinion, they got it. And they got it quickly. On the ones that I was thinking, I'm not so sure this is a great case, were denied. And then on the ones in the middle, it's sort of like it's gone either way. So I don't have enough statistics to give you a real answer, but it's basically the same, no more, no less than normal.
Is there anything that seems to be like an automatic, like I'm going to get the heart bill because I'm getting a stent put in, or I'm going to get the heart bill because I'm having open heart surgery, quadruple bypass?
I'm going to say no, only because a lot of law enforcement looks to your colleagues in the city, NYPD. Now, I don't deal directly inside NYPD. I do work outside if they lose, and I do some Article 78 appeals with them. But it appears from the outside, NYPD has sort of what you're asking about. Not a checklist, but let's just say if you have this, you're out. You have this, you're out. You have this, you're out. If you don't, you're not out. So they seem to be more focused and have an exacting kind of measurement for the heart because NYPD is a closed retirement system. So you have NYPD officers applying to NYPD pension fund. So it's a closed system.
Right.
Here, you have Suffolk police officers applying to the New York State Police and Fire Retirement System. So in general, they don't necessarily want to give you your disability pension. They're happy for you to get your service pension and not have to pay a higher number, or for your pension to be tax-free. So, not everything. I'm trying to hedge a little because I work with them all the time, and I don't want to say that they're looking to deny everybody. They're not, because there's cases where it when you see it, and you can get a disability pension in like 3 months. But when it's these that are the gray area on heart disease, they're more adversarial, and they're say, prove to us that you're disabled, and they don't have, as far as I can tell, a checklist of open heart surgery, yes. AFib, no. This, yes, is no. But the more problems you have and the more treatment you have and the bigger the injury and the disease and the surgery, the more likely you'll get approved that you're disabled. But we still have to, they may rebut that it's from work. So okay. I've seen massive heart disease denied because they said it was genetic. I've seen less heart disease approved because they see a crisper line that you didn't have anything, and now they haven't worked, they've been treating, and now they can't come back. Mm-hmm. So another lawyer answer of hedging. But I've seen a lot of, so the short answer, I don't think there's a checklist where I can promise anybody you have this and you're out. So,
have you seen any changes with the whole process as far as since COVID happened? Because I've heard the term COVID heart, COVID lung. Has there been anything that stands out from the long-term effects of COVID that has been qualifying people for the disability pensions?
Retirement system doesn't. Now with COVID, there's no presumption that you got the COVID on the job. So I have to prove
statewide.
That's statewide. I have to prove that your disability came from work. Mm-hmm. And so we haven't had. I can't recall recently any kind of long-term COVID application.
Has COVID heart become like a real thing, or is that still just like a generalized term that sometimes people throw around?
I don't know. I don't see it. I mean, I'm on the board of advisors for Mount Sinai Occupational Medicine and Northwell Health Occupational Medicine of Long Island. So that's a good question. I can come back to you guys and tell you the answer. I don't know from the legal aspect. I haven't seen too many COVID heart, or I don't think I can think of a COVID heart case that I filed.
I think that's interesting, though, that you say it's not presumed that it happened at work. When all the police officers were forced to go to work, when everybody else was staying home,
right?
I think that would be a good presumption if they were really looking at it.
Right, absolutely. And we have a local presumption because we were forced to go to work.
That's correct.
But it doesn't cover everybody in the state.
That's correct. You guys, it was great, and it was necessary, and it was hard to, did you get it when you got into the patrol car and the person next before you had COVID, or did you get it when you went to the deli? And those were the kind of cases we were battling all the time.
Even beyond that, though, I remember going to calls where people had COVID, and we had to still show up there. So
we were responding to the aided calls.
We knew that they had COVID. So
even I had a couple of COVID applications filed and approved, but they didn't get 3/4. So COVID was an exposure. You were being exposed, although that's an ED, exposed to something. But the risk of being exposed is the regular risk of the hazards of your job duties, is what the retirement system was saying. So the approvals I saw were for 50%, not 3/4.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I think a lot of why we may have had that added presumption benefit is because out here in Suffolk County, we are EMTs also, where a lot of departments, they're not EMTs. They don't necessarily have to respond to every sick person call, where we often do. And even if it's an ambulance that ultimately transports them, we're very often there first.
That's a good point, CJ.
Right.
So you have, so COVID is sort of, I haven't seen a lot of long COVID applications for disability pension personally.
So you were touching on, you haven't just worked on the heart bill. There's been other legislation where now and then you'll help with language. What kind of other changes have you seen throughout your career, and which ones did you help with?
Well, let's see, a while ago for locally here, actually statewide, but then every county had to adopt it. So for correction officers, they were looking for a assault 3/4 bill, where if they were assaulted by the act of an inmate in the jail, they would get 3/4. They used to only get 1/3, 33%.
Oh, wow.
If they were assaulted. So when that legislation was coming around, it could be 20 years old now. Every county had to adopt it. So I presented before the legislature in Suffolk County on what the pros and cons are of it and the cost potentially. And it was passed, I think, in large part by my presentation here.
Okay.
So I'm proud of that. That was under...
That's a big win.
Yeah.
Because those guys in the jails, they get assaulted all the time.
And they get 1/3 of the amount of money that you're making at the time.
That's a
That's
huge
unbelievable
difference.
Right.
off that type of money.
Yeah, and 1/3, you can't even live on that. You can't retire on that. So you're retired because of disability from being able to work, but now you're forced to go back to work somewhere else to even make ends meet.
And it's taxed.
Right.
Yeah. It's taxed. So, but I still deal with it all the time. I remember earlier you asked me how do you write a report that's accurate, but is, helps with 3/4 versus not helping with, versus hurting with correction inside the jail. If they don't put the magic words assaulted by the act, or I'm sorry, not necessarily assaulted, but injured by the result of an act of an inmate. So it's act of an inmate.
Okay.
So if they don't put the words act of an inmate in their description, they're still going to get 33%.
Wow.
And they still have to prove that it was the act of an inmate. So, they could have subtle cases where there was water on the floor and they slipped and fell on water. Now, if they just wrote that, slipped and fell on water in cell blocks B, probably a 33% pension. But if they write, slipped on water because we saw the inmates throwing buckets out of their jail cells or emptying their toilets, onto the floor, and the whole place that's an act of an inmate. So it's subtle for them also.
Well, what about like an inaction of an inmate? Because I think in the jails, some of them have almost like jobs, right? They do laundry within the jail, or maybe some of them mop floors during the jail. So let's say an inmate has responsibility of mopping a floor in a jail, and he leaves the floor wet and you slip on it, or misses part of it, right? He misses picking it back up. He leaves the wetness behind.
The inaction of an inmate. It's a good question.
Right? Because I know some of them definitely have jobs throughout the jail. I don't know if they do custodial work, but I've heard of them doing laundry in the past.
I'll give you, here's a lawyer answer. I only file the applications. I don't make the final decisions.
Okay.
However, what I would advise that CEO to write it the way that you were sort of describing it. Because of the inaction act.
Right.
The inaction act of an inmate. The act, and try to, any way you can.
Right. The act of mopping the floor and improperly. drying the surface.
Correct. So
right.
I don't know the answer, but I would certainly put that versus slipped on wet floor.
Right. Right.
So any way you can try.
At least it puts you in the mix. And again, it's still truthful. It's just the way you're wording it.
Absolutely. Puts you in the ball game.
Yeah.
Grammar's so important in law. I didn't realize that. Every word makes a difference in whether the case goes or doesn't.
Between law, contracts, sometimes a comma changes the entire definition.
The way you read the sentence or what it means potentially. So
right.
Like those cans versus musts versus mays versus shalls are, and then you don't know if they were put in intentionally or was it a typo or like a grammar, they didn't really pay attention that word shall or must really should have been may or can. Now,
makes it a little more broad instead of being like direct and definite.
So you guys got to watch that on contract negotiations.
Yeah, absolutely.
The same thing, which you got a great contract. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it worked out. I think both sides were happy. Satisfied with the outcome.
I've seen many of them through my video. What is that? What's the math? 32 years, something like that with you with Suffolk. So what else did I want? I wanted to give you a heads up on.
Go ahead.
You asked me about do I have any examples? So do I ever mention like uninsured motorist coverage?
We've had this discussion, but it's
right?
worth noting to everybody who's out there watching and listening.
So uninsured motorist coverage is extremely important for especially everybody who drives a car, but certainly law enforcement. So uninsured motorist coverage in a nutshell is coverage you have on your own private car at home. So with Geico, State Farm, Allstate, not your police car, but your private vehicle at home. you can have coverage that would protect you and anybody who lives in your family if you're injured by a vehicle who has less insurance than you, or equal or less insurance or no insurance, even if you're at work. So if you're driving a Suffolk County marked unit or any unit and you get hit by a car, I always like to ask a survey of how many uninsured tickets are written for when you get pulled over and you get stopped for speeding or whatever. How many times do they also add uninsured, no insurance? It seems like it's a lot. Mm-hmm. So if that car hit you and injured you and they had no auto insurance, even if you're driving a Suffolk police car, you may not be able to get the full benefits that you're entitled to on a lawsuit. But if you have uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage to a higher amount on your personal policy, you can use that to protect you. It carries over, and it's not considered an insurable event. So by using it, they can't raise your rates, the carrier, and they can't kick you out. It's not an insurable event.
And you've told me in the past that it's actually relatively cheap to add it to your existing coverage.
Very, very. It's probably one of the least expensive coverages you could purchase on your auto policy for high benefit.
I got to recheck my car insurance now.
Yeah. Everybody should take a screenshot of your declaration policy page of your policy, and I'll be able to tell you in 2 seconds if you're underinsured.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that advice. That's something that can help anybody out there, no matter what line of work you're in.
Correct.
Now you're an interesting guy. So you're very busy within social circles as well, and you're not just an attorney, but you actually volunteer for a lot of groups too. Probably as an attorney, right, in that sort of scope. But why don't you tell us about some of the other boards that you're on?
Okay. So we like to give back. I like to give back. I like to teach my children to give back. My law firm likes to give back to the community. So when I'm asked, I usually say yes. So I've been lucky enough to be asked to become a board member for the Ronald McDonald House, Metro New York.
Great organization.
They're fantastic. They do great things for families, children, and I'm the second vice chairman now.
And you actually introduced us to the Ronald McDonald House just recently.
Yeah, the main facility on Long Island is right now in New Hyde Park by LIJ.
Yeah, I've been to that one before, yeah.
That's a big house, and now we're building another brand new big house across the street from Stony Brook University Hospital. And you guys, Suffolk PBA is involved, and it's great for the organization.
Yeah, Jordan introduced us to some of the other board members at the Ronald McDonald House, and he got us involved in a sponsorship. And we didn't hesitate to get involved. We just wanted to know what we can do to help this project. And we got involved with sponsoring part of the kitchen and dining area of the new building.
CJ was a big part of that, getting that done. So.
Thank you to Jordan for the network connections. But it's something good that we can all be a part of now in the community going forward, because everybody in Suffolk County not everybody is going to use this facility, right? It's unfortunate when you have to, but it's fortunate to be there for the people that do have to use this facility.
I coined it. It's that one of the happiest, saddest places at the same time, because you're only there because something is going on with one of your children, and you're in a high stress situation, and there's potentially life-threatening illnesses. So it's sad. But because of the joy the Ronald McDonald House brings to the families under that stressful time, it makes it a little easier. So usually when they come back to the house, all their treatment is ignored, and everybody's in a happy, good mood. And
it's an escape.
It's perfect.
Right? The families and the patients can kind of escape what's going on in the real world around them from at least a few moments at a time, and be in this happy place that's right next door to the hospital.
So Suffolk is underutilized. There's a room. There's a room in the main hospital for Ronald McDonald House room. But this is going to be a standalone giant building, equal in size to New Hyde Park, if not bigger, or around the same size. But we always say the heart of the house is in the kitchen, because everybody's coming through the kitchen. So it's very exciting that Suffolk PBA is in the kitchen at Ronald McDonald.
Yeah, it's something that we're very excited to be a part of, and we're looking forward to. We also, because this is such a great organization and it helps so many families, we actually committed to doing an annual barbecue there also. So it's going to be a great thing for the PBA to expand our scope of community service, and I'm excited to be a part of this.
It's nice to have that interaction with the community.
Oh, 100%.
Everybody benefits. It feels good. it just feels good all
Absolutely.
around. And then, so I'm the vice chairman of the advisory board of Northwell Occupational Environmental Medicine of Long Island, and that's we look at all types of occupational medicine and diseases and illnesses on Long Island that affect Long Island. What else am I? Oh, I'm on the board of AMC's Atlantic Marine Conservation Society. So those are when you see there's a whale that washes up on it, or the turtles, or the seals, or we do beach cleanups. So if you have anybody, or we do a lot of beach cleanups and annually. So if children want to come volunteer and clean up the beaches for debris that can affect the marine life, I'm on that board. I play the bagpipes in 2 police pipes and drum bagpipe bands. I don't know if that counts as giving back, but it's certainly.
We've heard you play.
You've heard me play, so maybe it's not giving back, bro. So Eastern Long Island Police Pipes and Drums and the Port Authority Police Department Pipes and Drums band.
So not only are you part of all these groups, but you're also a peace officer too.
Oh, yes. So, now it's 2 years ago. Nassau County SPCA is an all-volunteer organization as well. And that is the Society for the Protection for Cruelty Against Animals. So I was asked to become a detective with that organization.
Straight to the detective.
We go straight to detective. Sorry, Tanner. Yeah. Straight to Gold Shield. So we, the agency is 100% dependent on fundraising. So it's not, the county doesn't fund it. We work with the district attorney's office and local law enforcement in Nassau County. So, for example, if I'm going to get a call to see if an animal is under stress at a particular house and it looks like it could be a dangerous situation, I'll contact the local PD, whether it's a village or town or county, to assist us. I'm the low man. I'm the rookie on the. I think I'm still on probation for sure. Definitely on probation for sure. But they do some great work with the animals. So I had to become a peace officer. So when the course that I took, I thought it was going to be. I guess I don't know what I thought it was going to be to become a peace officer, but it was a lot longer and involved. And I think because Nassau County wants to, our agency would like to basically set the standard that we are, can help the public and help ourselves and be legitimate peace officers. I went through a whole complete Department of Criminal Justice System, DCJS peace officer course for months and months and came out the other side. So I am a card-carrying peace officer now.
That's very cool.
I'll tell you though, what it did do for the most part, I mean, I love helping the animals and I loved it, but because I've
noticed a lot of the organizations you're part of do care for animals.
You're right.
Yeah.
We're not counting the pipe bands, right? Which I'm scared. But yeah, you're right. That it does have a theme, but it gave me an insight after representing law enforcement for over 30 years. I'm on this side of the table. You get hurt, you come to me. Now
it gives a different perspective of what goes on.
The first time I had to knock on a door and I was wearing a vest and I had a rig on my waist, I realized I was standing in the middle of someone's lawn with a gate around me and I was totally exposed. And not everybody knows what I'm there for.
Right.
Am I there just for a dog or am I something else?
Are you a detective with the police department?
Correct. So all of a sudden it hit me what law enforcement, police officers, detectives go through on a daily basis, even though I know because I've lived it. And I'm on the World Trade Center advisory board for Mount Sinai since 9/11. So I know probably more stories than I'd like to tell about what happened to individuals down at the site. But you never really know it until you're standing in that yard with that vest on.
Right.
And now looking over your shoulder.
Right. Now all of a sudden you're walking a mile in our shoes.
That's why I'm glad you guys are for the most part in those yards and I'm on this side of the table.
Right. Now, you felt the adrenaline rush and the heart beating.
Absolutely.
When you're going into the unknown. You don't know what's on the other side of that door.
It definitely makes you much more well-rounded, probably even as an attorney and as a person in general, to have these experiences. I think that we had a great talk today. I think we got into a lot of interesting things. Is there anything you want to leave off on? And can you just let our viewers know where they could reach you and your law firm in case they need representation?
Okay. I think we covered a lot today. So the website for the law firm is workerslaw.com. Pretty easy. We have an 800 number, 800-692-3717. 800-692-3717 is the general office number. And that's the easiest way to get to us, either workerslaw.com or through the 800 number, or you can walk into any of our offices. And these days, you don't even have to come into our office. If you want to retain us, we can create all the documents on our end based on our conversations with you, create a DocuSign, send it to your cell phone. You can sign it in your police car, send it back to us, and then we're off and running on our end.
Right, it makes it a lot more user-friendly.
Very easy.
You guys are great landlords also. I have to add that.
Yeah, it does help having you right downstairs. Like we always tell our members, it's one-stop shopping here at the PBA building. Whether you're looking for workers' comp attorney, social security law, financial advisement, we have it all here.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for having me in the building. We love the Lower East Side of this building.
Thank you for being here, Jordan.
Thanks for coming up.
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Thank you.